This is How Do I Read the Bible. Before we begin though, check this out. I think the beard is on point at the moment. Could do with a trim from a proper barber, but I like where we're at. It can only get stronger. Beard game, you know what I mean? So how do you read the Bible? Let's imagine that you've come in, either you're approaching the Bible for the first time, or it's maybe been a while. Maybe occasionally it's crossed your path, but now you really want to sit down and go, I want to read the Bible. I've already said in a couple of other videos that my advice is not to sit down and try and attempt to go from the very beginning, the book of Genesis, all the way through to the end of the New Testament and the book of Revelation. That's a whole chunk of reading. As it is, again, numerous books written by numerous people in numerous different genres. You may struggle with that. Most people will get through the book of Genesis into Exodus, and then all of a sudden they hit the Leviticus and the Numbers and the Deuteronomy, and things get a little bit more tricky, less narrative, more reporting of stuff, and enthusiasm wanes. So my advice is a little different. And I base this advice on kind of years of reading the Bible, and also from my time when I first came to reading the Bible. I grabbed my mum's, I'm looking around for, I've not got it, but I grabbed a little Bible, a little tiny Bible like this. This is my kind of easy carry Bible I've got. I carried a Bible not too dissimilar in size and appearance to this in the attic of my parents' house when I was 16. It was a King James version of the Bible, which is all the really frilly thee, thou, them, thou. Say thee, thou, thou. Hither, then, thou, thee, thing, thou. All that sort of stuff. And quite complicated to read. And I didn't know what to do, didn't know where to read, but somewhere, somehow, I'd heard, start of the New Testament. So I went to, I'm not ashamed to say it in any way, and I always say to everyone as they approach the Bible, the page you should get to know the best is this page. It's the table of contents. Don't be afraid of going to the table of contents and trying to find where different books are. I found my way to the New Testament and to one of the Gospels, the first Gospel of Matthew. Before we talk about Gospels and why it's good to read them first, a little bit of advice. It is simply to not try and rush through. Start slow. Start with intention. Allow it to breathe. Read it. If you find you haven't, sometimes you try and I'll finish this chapter or whatever. You sort of go, you might sort of not really quite remember what you're doing. You just want to get through the next bit or finish a gospel, for instance, or finish a passage. If you do that, don't be afraid to go back. It's better that you make note in your mind and you really chew on what you're reading than just get through a bunch of stuff. The Bible is a collection of stories and accounts from people that have reached out to God and found him in one way or another. That's what this book is trying to tell you about. But I knew enough, or I'd heard somewhere, you should go to the New Testament. That's the interesting bit. And so I went there and I found my way to the Gospel of Matthew. This is the account of Jesus' life. The word gospel is strange what the real meaning of it is. It is almost like celebration. It's like Matthew celebrates Jesus. Mark celebrates Jesus. That's the kind of word, this word gospel here. There are 4 gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. These 3 over here, these 3 little piggies, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they're what's known as the synoptic gospels. Synoptic means can be taken together, or that they are alike. And they say that because they seem to sort of grab from the same sources. They talk about many of the same events, sometimes in the same order. So they seem to be very well related. Whereas John over here, this little piggy, he's crazy. These are to be taken together. This is to be taken with like whiskey and LSD or something. It's crazy. John is my favourite gospel. I'm not digging at John, but it's wonderfully strange. These gospels over here, they begin with the birth narrative of Jesus, the famous kind of bit we know about, little Bethlehem, little town of Bethlehem and all that, and a baby wrapped in swaddling, all that. John begins his story of Jesus right at the dawn of time. So he goes back a bit more, Space Odyssey 2001 styles. Either way, whatever you choose, and I would recommend Matthew because I did, and I wasn't a big reader, so it seemed like that was achievable for me. Find yourself to one of the Gospels and slowly read about the account of Jesus, his life, his birth, his teaching, the healings, the different events, the things he loved to do, the things that were set against him, where he traveled, who he spoke to, how he did it, and about his arrest and torture and crucifixion and death and resurrection. That is a great first read to put on your Bible to-do list. Okay, so just go there. Go gospel first. It will really, really help you. Trust me. I would also say, because the other thing I did, I read Gospels, made my way through all the 4 Gospels. But at the same time, I found my way to what I'm now describing as biblical wisdom tapas. You know, when you go to a tapas restaurant, I don't think a Greek tapas, you go there, and essentially tapas means small plate. You go there and they give you a little sample of everything. A little sample of meat stuff, a little sample of like a yogurt or a hummus dish, a little sample of a vegetable dish. You get all these little tasters. I think it's a really good discipline when you first come to the Bible to read Gospels and get a grounding and start your way in gospel stuff. But then also for that biblical wisdom tapas to happen, where you go to a book called Proverbs, which is pretty much in the middle of the Bible. To the left of Proverbs, you have a book called the Psalms, which is the kind of... So Proverbs is wisdom, little saying that... An acute wisdom of people over the years. The Psalms is songs, worship songs. The song life of Israel is in the Psalms. Also, there's a book called Ecclesiastes, which is the account of King Solomon, who was very wise and very rich. And it's his account of what's worthwhile doing in life. So when I first came to the Bible, I started with Gospels, reading them, and then I had that biblical wisdom tapas. Didn't call it that then, just thought I'm dipping in and out. And these are good because they're just small little chapters. Sometimes you can just read one proverb, you write it somewhere, take a photo of it on your phone, and just think about it during the day. Let it stir you and try and share its kind of truth with you. Dip in, basically tapas. Dip in wherever you like. Try a few things. Have your main course be the gospel, and then dip in where you want. Now, I say all this, but it's really up to you where you start. The important thing is that you start. And I want to give you enough push in the right direction so that you're not discouraged. Because, you know, it is a book of many different kinds of writing. And you don't necessarily want to start in a book that might put you off. That sounds funny, but it's true. But it's not of first importance that you just get through the Bible. That's not our aim here. Our aim here is not to just get through the Bible. Our aim is to read the Bible, to dwell a while in it, and allow it to speak to us, allow it to seep into us. Maybe you're someone who's a great reader, you might thunder through things, that's great, but I would even then recommend you, if you thunder through a gospel super quick, do it again. Just do it again. Simple, right? If you get through all the gospels pretty good, just do it again. You know what I mean? I think when I first started reading the Bible, within the first 9 months, I'd read all the New Testament, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes. Now, I don't say that as a boast and as a bar, but I was just very, very hungry for it. But I don't know if I'd have kept that keenness up in reading the Bible if I'd have started in an Old Testament book that was in the middle of a narrative or a story and a very long book where, you know, it's a lot of chapters that are very long. I think I might have tapped out before then. So yeah, these are my first tips. The other part of this is, you know, this is a book that is about people who experience something of God and learnt some lessons and wrote about it for good or bad. So there's an element of this, you're engaging with an account of people who have met with God. So as a part of it, if this is your bag as well, try it. Before you read it, just pray. You know, I'm big. This is what I did, right? At some point, reading the Gospels, I wasn't praying, I was just reading it. But at some point, I saw there were prayers. I saw that Jesus taught on prayer. And I said, yeah, all right, okay. If you're there, God, talk to me. And I found some interesting things occurred when that happened. So there you go. There's your how to read the Bible starter pack. Feel free to comment down below if you've got other tips and ways of doing it, other things that have helped you. If you want to use apps, you want to use daily reading things, get through the Bible in a year, things, that's up to you. I don't. I just think this is an easier, calm way of going at your pace and finding the things that in the scriptures that you like. I hope that's helpful. Do check out the rest of the videos, how to study the Bible, which is different from reading. I'll also do a video, there should be a video around by now, on translations, because there's lots of different versions of the Bible. What does that even mean? We'll talk about that. Enjoy. Hope that was helpful. Bless you. See you next time. Later.